was March 14th, 2019. It was the first day at my new job as a clothing retail store manager, and I was nervous. Right after I had started my shift, my best friend, Ethan, had called me. His father was in the hospital after suffering a stroke. I'd known Ethan for well over a decade. We had been best friends for as long as I could remember. I'd spent countless hours and days over at his house after school, just because both my parents worked late. To hear that his father, who played such an important role in both of our lives and in his household, was in the hospital was terrible news. And to hear the pain in his voice as he was telling me what happened was heartbreaking. I went into my office. I thought maybe I could just take 10, 15 minutes out of my shift to comfort my friend and be there for him. Unfortunately, just minutes after we got on the call, there was a page announcements over the store, a first aid emergency, and I had to go. I told Ethan I would call him back as soon as I could, and I got up. And as I was leaving, I saw my reflection in the window of my office. I had tears in my eyes, and my face was red. I couldn't walk out onto the floor like this. I had to have some sense of professionalism. I had to switch from being this Colton the friend to a Colton the boss kind of character.
Ooh, free snaps! Yes, love it.
I grabbed a tissue and I dried my eyes. I took a step back. I took a couple deep breaths to steady my voice and make the red fade from my face. And then I went out onto the floor. There was a customer having a seizure. A seizure is a terrifying sight. And there's a group of my staff members around him, not really sure what to do. I grabbed the apron from one of the employees and stuck it under his head so it would stop smashing it against the ground. I had one of my employees call 911 and explain what happened. When the customer stopped seizing, I rolled him over into the recovery position and waited for the ambulance to arrive. I dealt with it in a calm, cool, collected fashion. Paramedics came, they took him away, gave the apron back, got my phone back, and went back up to my office. I called Ethan, and I could be a friend again. We talked for about 10 to 15 minutes and comforted each other. I told him that I would stop by after my shift, and we could talk about it. I sat back in my chair after hanging up, utterly exhausted, and it had only been 30 minutes of my shift. I had 7.5 more hours to go of this.
Wow.
I know that some of you have been in situations like this, where you want to act one way, but the situation pressures you to act another. It could be as simple as a job interview, where you want to present the best form of yourself in order to get the job. Maybe you could be out with friends, and they're all having a good time, and you want to be high energy with them, even if you're not necessarily feeling it that night. We all act differently depending on who we are with and where we are. Among my own personal experience with this topic, I've researched scenarios in which our perceived self and presented self come in conflict, and I've come upon some useful resources to help us understand identity management. So today, I want to talk to you about the conflict that our presented self and perceived self have and the stress that results from it. I'll talk to you guys about the use of our presenting selves, how to create boundaries between our presenting self and our perceived self, and how to manage the stress created by our identity management, exemplified in the story that I told you about.
I cannot control myself, Colson. Thank you so much. I love it. I love it. I love it. Keep going. Keep going. Woo.
Okay.
It's so good. Keep going.
We use identity management nearly every single day in our lives. So let's take a look at why and how we use it. Managing our presenting selves is a way of status seeking and is a natural part of human behavior. According to Friedlander and Schwartz, 1985, in their article, Toward a Theory of Strategic Self-Presentation in Counseling and Psychotherapy, open quote, virtually all social behavior can be considered impression management, close quote, page 485. Humans evolved this trait in order to impress the people around us and create admiration from those that we respect. In fact, as Highhouse, Brooks, and Wang, 2016, discussed in their article, Status Seeking and Manipulative Self-Presentation, open quote, people alter their responses to certain questions in order to elicit admiration from others, end quote, page 353. And the most common form of this answer altering that we give is exaggeration. Think again in a job interview, how you'll over-exaggerate some good things you do at a previous job, and then you'll hide the light from a couple of mistakes you made before.
Of course.
And this is just textbook manipulation.
Yep.
Now, this type of manipulation isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's so widely done and commonly known. It's simply just a different presentation of yourself. However, with a lack of boundaries, this presenting self and being somebody different, either by pure pressure or desperation, the further you push yourself, the worse that it would get. I'm going to pull up my first screen share. Here. How do I do this? Think of the movie Catch Me If You Can, released in 2002, directed by Steven Spielberg. Frank Abagnale, the main character, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, has multiple presentations of themselves. They present themselves as a doctor, as a pilot, and as a lawyer throughout the film. This is a clear example of someone without any boundaries towards their presenting self.
Yeah.
When he's a doctor, in this particular scene, he deals with somebody with a broken leg. Now, he isn't actually a doctor, he's just acting as a doctor. And after this scene, he goes and throws up in the bathroom because he wasn't prepared to deal with it. As a pilot, he has to act extremely conceited to have this gaggle of flight attendants around him as he's walking through, avoiding this FBI detective chasing him. And as a lawyer, at the time of the film, he was actually dating a daughter of somebody who was a lawyer in the film. And so he actually ended up passing the bar exam to prove that he was a lawyer. So this is clearly someone without any boundaries. And to bring this to a more modern day example, Rousseau 2020 states that social media in general, let's stop right there. Social media in general is terrible for our presenting self.
Yep.
I've lost my spot here. Particularly with selfies, because people, open quote, evaluate oneself's appearance by means of reviewing feedback on posted selfies, close quote, page 17. And this has become the norm in our social life on social media. A lot of people value themselves based on the amount of likes they get on a post on Instagram or the amount of likes on Facebook or something. And this is where a boundary has to be made, because although we seek this higher status, as I explained in my first point, we can never, ever get everybody to like us. And the fact that if we stress ourselves out trying to edit the photos to a certain extent or to Photoshop ourselves places we've never been with people we've never met, it ends up putting this extreme stress on ourselves. And if we don't get the attention that we want on the post that we posted, then it'll lead to depression, anxiety, possible unhealthy actions, such as eating disorders as well, if we want to go that far. In close relation to the second point, we now need to look at the stress caused by conflicting, presenting, and perceived selves and ways to solve this issue. And in this particular point, I'm going to narrow in on the workplace, because the way we present ourselves at work is typically the further we'll ever push our presenting self. As Highhouse, Brooks, and Wang 2016 mentioned in their article, Status Seeking and Manipulative Self-Presentation, the number one way that we present ourselves at work is with exemplification, which is a fancy way of saying by showing commitment and loyalty. And that is because it is, open quote, viewed as desirable from the employer's point of view, close quote, page 354. And since most people act like this way at work every day, it may seem that it wouldn't cause issues or have any conflict in our life. However, I've got another slide in to show you that will prove wrong. This is a study done by a Forbes article, and it shows that burnout is on the rise. And a lot of burnout is caused by overworking and having too much work to do and having too much stress in relation to work. But our presented selves at work, they're wired to keep our boss happy. Mm-hmm. And so when our boss gives us some work to do, we want to instinctively say yes, because the happier a boss is with us, the more likely we're able to get that higher status position by getting a raise or those promotions that are so few and far throughout. Okay. And moreover, when we have a lot of on our plate already and we're feeling kind of in over our head, we're hesitant to go ask our boss for help or to maybe turn it down a notch or delegate some tasks away. However, we need to solve this issue because this is common everyday experience. Like the article said, close to 50% of people feel burnout starting with the pandemic. And it was up about 7%, so 40-ish% experience burnout pre-pandemic. So when your boss gives you work to do, and this can be applicable to life when you have to decide a presenting and perceived self situation. You have to take a step back and reprioritize what it is that you're doing. A way it's hard to just say no to your boss. So a way to deal with it is just ask them to reprioritize the tasks they already gave you. Say you got 5 tasks and they're trying to give you a 6th. Where should they fit it in? Should they make it top priority, or should they maybe make it lower priority, or should they get rid of one of your tasks that isn't a priority anymore and just fit it right in the middle and just work as you go? We have gone over a lot of information, so let's sum it up now. Having different selves and managing these identities is a part of human nature. We developed it as a form of status seeking, since the higher status we had, the more rewards we got.
Mhm.
And there's still truth to that to an extent. However, setting up boundaries between our perceived self and our presented self is vital to a healthy mindset, because if we don't have any barrier, then it becomes too much just a simple manipulation, and nobody likes to be manipulated.
Right.
And lastly, when perceived self and presented self do conflict and there is stress, it is incredibly important to take a step back and reevaluate and reprioritize. You always have to choose your perceived self over your presenting self, because if you aren't yourself, you can't be anybody else because they're all already taken. As for the story I told you at the start of this speech, I wound up quitting the management job that I had in favor of another job where I didn't have to deal with people as often. I was only 17 when I was put in the management position,
Wow.
and the stress of the job combined with my schoolwork, the friends and relationship that I had, it was way too much at the time. I didn't want to have to show up to work and for 8 hours put on the mask of a boss when all I wanted to do was to be people's friends. Thanks for listening.
Good self-awareness then, that you were able to recognize that wasn't for you, eh? Thank you so much.